Hey everyone, welcome back to Geodecode. Today we're tackling Donald Trump's big beautiful bill, a massive polarizing law that's reshaping taxes, spending, and even global ties. Signed on July 4, 2025, it's got people buzzing from DC to your neighborhood. Let's break it down, what's in it, when it hits, who's cheering or jeering, and why it matters. Our mission here at Geodecode, as always, is to take the sources you share with us, all the articles, the research, the notes, and really pull out the most important nuggets of knowledge and insight. We want to give you that clear, concise shortcut to being genuinely informed, cutting through the noise, essentially. Picture this. Your money, their fight. Imagine you're a server banking tips, relying on that cash. Or maybe you're an immigrant wiring money home to family miles away, and suddenly your paycheck looks different. Could be bigger, could be, smaller. All because of this new law. That's the immediate hit.
Yeah, and what's fascinating, really, is how fast something like this, cooked up in D.C., can just ripple outwards. It doesn't just tweak your finances. It shakes up whole global economies. It really is a global hook. Affects everyone.
Definitely.
Curious how this massive law might touch your life or reshape things globally. Okay, let's dive in. Let's geodecode it. So, first things first, right? The practical question everyone's asking. When does this all actually kick in for you?
Okay, good question. So most of the One Big Beautiful Bill Act, as it's called, officially takes effect January 1st, 2026.
January 1st, 2026.
Okay. But, and this is important, some pieces are already moving, like federal agencies. They're starting their preparations now, adjusting how they operate.
So groundwork is being laid already.
Exactly. So the clock's definitely ticking.
Yeah.
The changes are closer than you might think, really.
Got it. Okay, let's unpack this thing then. What exactly is inside this big, beautiful bill? It sounds like a lot.
It is. It's pretty comprehensive. Makes some really significant changes across the board.
All right, first up, tax cuts. Trump's 2017 cuts, those were temporary, right? Set to expire.
That's right. They had a sunset clause.
Well, now they're permanent, locked in.
Yep. That's a major piece. Making those cuts permanent means, lower rates for individuals and businesses are now basically baked into the code.
So lower rates stick around.
Right. And there's also this senior bonus, they're calling it. It's designed to ease Social Security taxes a bit for older Americans.
Interesting.
And for people in high tax states, the SALT deduction state and local tax that gets beefed up too.
Okay, the SALT deduction boost. Always a hot topic.
Always. It tends to benefit wealthier folks in those high tax areas. So, the debate continues there.
And here's where it gets really interesting for a lot of workers, I think. No federal taxes on tips up to $25,000 or overtime pay up to $12,500.
That's correct. Yeah. If you're under certain income limits, it's a very specific carve out.
Wow. So cheers to that, right? Bartenders, factory folks, people working extra hours. That could be a pretty big deal.
It could be. It's definitely one of the, let's say, standout features aimed directly at certain workers, puts more cash directly in their pockets, theoretically. Though it does add some complexity, for filing taxes and for businesses tracking all that.
Sure, I bet. Okay, so that's the domestic side. But you mentioned a global hook earlier. There's a twist involving money sent overseas.
Yes, exactly. A significant global twist. There's now a 1% tax on remittances money sent overseas.
1%. I heard it was initially proposed higher.
It was. The original idea floated was 5%, so 1% is a scaled back version. But even 1%, it still stings.
How so?
Well, think about it. If you send, say, $1,000 to family back in Mexico or India, that's $10 less they actually receive.
Okay, $10 might not sound like a huge amount.
For one person, maybe not.
Yeah.
But multiply that by millions of people sending money home regularly, the total amount is huge.
Right.
And if you look at the bigger picture, it's not just personal. It's like economic dynamite for countries that really depend on that money.
Dynamite? How?
Well, nations like, say, India or Honduras, remittances make up maybe 20% or even more of their entire economy, their GDP.
20%? Wow.
Yeah. So cutting into that flow, even by 1%, can cause real economic ripples, maybe even chaos. It affects everything from household spending to national reserves.
So it could destabilize things pretty significantly in some places.
Potentially, yes. It's a direct hit to livelihoods and national economies.
Okay, so we've got tax cuts, this remittance tax. How is all this being paid for or, balanced out? Sounds like a lot of changes.
Right. Well, to fund these measures and other priorities, there's a pretty significant spending shuffle happening. Money's being moved around.
A shuffle. Okay, so where's the money going to and where's it coming from?
Okay, so big increases are flowing into immigration enforcement and defense. Pretty standard Trump priorities, really. Reflects traditional Republican goals.
More for borders and military. Got it.
But to free up that cash, other areas see cuts.
Yeah.
Medicaid and SNT food stamps, basically they take a noticeable hit.
Oof. That affects low-income families directly.
Definitely. And also clean energy tax credits. Those are gone. Vanished. So bad news for the solar industry and green initiatives.
Right. So a shift away from those incentives.
And student loan forgiveness programs. They get much tougher, much more complex to navigate, harder to get relief.
Okay. So clear shifts in priorities there. Tax cuts and defense up, social programs and green energy down. How did this whole package even get through Congress? It sounds like it must have been a massive fight.
Oh, it absolutely was. A true slugfest, as you said.
Yeah.
Republicans really had to muscle it through. They used their majority power quite effectively, but Democrats fought back hard.
I heard about that. Hakeem Jeffries gave some marathon speech.
He did. An 8-hour speech on the House floor, really trying to rally opposition. He framed the whole bill as, a billionaire bailout.
A billionaire bailout.
Yeah, and a gut punch to the poor. That was the language being used. Arguing it just helps the rich and hurts everyone else.
So intense rhetoric.
Very intense. Lots of late night talks, arm twisting. The usual Washington drama, but maybe amplified. Despite all that outcry, though, Trump and the Republicans got the win.
A major legislative victory for them, then.
Unquestionably. It locks in a lot of their core goals.
Okay, so the bill is passed. It's law. What does it all mean now? For people listening, for the country, for the world. What are the ripple effects?
Well, at home, domestically, it really looks like a bit of a split screen,
How so?
Middle and upper income folks, they might see more money in their pockets, especially with those permanent tax cuts and the brakes on tips and overtime we talked about.
Right, the idea being they spend more, boost the economy.
That's the theory, yeah.
Yeah.
More disposable income for certain groups.
But there's always a but, isn't there?
There usually is. On the flip side, lower income families could really feel the squeeze from those cuts to Medicaid and SNAP, losing healthcare access, food support. That's tough.
Yeah, that's hitting basic needs.
It is. And like we said, if you're in the green energy sector or just care about it, well, it seems like it's back to the drawing board. Losing those tax credits is a significant setback for renewables.
Okay, so a mixed bag domestically. What about globally? You mentioned that remittance tax being seismic.
It really is. Think about those countries like India, Honduras, others, where remittances are, say, 20% of their GDP. Mm-hmm. Taking a hit there isn't just an economic problem. It could cause genuine social instability. Less money means less spending, maybe currency issues, maybe higher inflation.
And you mentioned it might even affect migration.
That's a real concern some experts have raised, yeah. If families overseas lose that vital financial lifeline, does it push more people to migrate out of desperation? It's a serious question.
A potential unintended consequence.
Could be. And beyond that, just the act of imposing this kind of tax could easily stir up trade tensions or diplomatic friction with other countries.
Right. Okay, and then there's the cost, price tag for this whole thing. That's got to be a huge debate.
Oh, absolutely. It's a massive point of contention.
What are the numbers being thrown around?
Well, critics, and this includes some pretty prominent figures like Elon Musk, apparently, they're pegging it at adding something like $4.2 trillion to the national debt over 10 years.
4.2 trillion. Wow.
It's a huge number.
Yeah.
Raises all sorts of alarms about, fiscal responsibility, debt burden for the future.
So what's the counter argument? How does the Trump administration justify that?
They're betting big on economic growth. The argument is that the tax cuts and deregulation will spur so much economic activity, investment, jobs, that it will generate enough new tax revenue to essentially pay for itself, or at least offset a large chunk of the cost.
The growth will pay for its argument.
Exactly, the classic supply side argument. But it's definitely a gamble. Very high stakes, depends entirely on the economy performing incredibly well.
A big bet indeed. So, with all these impacts, the costs, the shifts, I imagine reactions have been pretty strong. Lots of cheers, lots of jeers.
To say that again, it's extremely polarizing.
Who's lining up against it?
Well, Democrats are obviously furious. You have figures like Elizabeth Warren calling it very unpopular, really hammering that rich man's game narrative. Mm-hmm. And it's not just politicians, even some religious leaders. Archbishop Timothy Broglio from the U.S. Catholic bishops called the cuts to programs for the vulnerable Unconscionable. Strong moral objections there.
Unconscionable. Wow.
Yeah. And just look online, check out X. It's a total war zone. People calling it a job killer, a disaster. Others hailing it as promise kept. Exactly what the economy needed. Just night and day.
So deeply divided. What about the general public? Do we have a sense of where most Americans stand?
Yeah, there was a Quinnipiac poll recently. It showed a slight majority opposing the bill overall.
Okay, slightly more against it than for it.
Right. And this is really interesting when you dig into the specifics. It gets complicated.
How so?
Well, for example, that idea of extending tax cuts for lower earners, 71% of people love that idea. Huge support for that specific piece.
71%. So people like parts of it even if they don't like the whole thing.
Exactly. It's a real love-hate mashup. People cheer some aspects, boo others. It shows how complex public opinion is on these big, multifaceted bills. It's not just a simple yes or no for most folks.
Makes sense. People pick and choose based on what affects them or what they value.
Precisely.
Okay, before we wrap up, any sort of cool tidbits or background on how this all came together? Where did it originate?
Yeah, a couple of things. For instance, digging into the details, green card holders who are still in the Medicaid waiting period, they get hit particularly hard by these changes. It's quite specific.
Okay.
And then there's this kind of quirky provision. A one-time $1,000 deposit for kids who are U.S. citizens. Sort of a little family bonus tucked in there.
$1,000 for kids. Okay.
And the political drama we touched on.
Yeah.
The late-night votes, the arm twisting. It really was pure theater, apparently. High-stakes stuff.
So where does this fit in the bigger Trump picture? Is this building on previous stuff?
Oh, absolutely.
No.
If you connect the dots, this big, beautiful bill is basically Trump's encore performance. Yeah, his 2017 tax cuts really set the stage, right? Those were significant but temporary. Now, this bill cements them, makes them permanent, and adds those worker perks on top. It's doubling down.
So consolidating the 2017 vision.
Exactly. And that remittance tax, that feels like vintage Trump immigration policy. Using financial levers like taxing money, leaving the country to, flex border muscle, fits right into the America First playbook.
Right, controlling flows in and out.
Precisely. And with Republicans controlling Congress, it was the opportunity to put his full second-term vision into law. It's all there now, in ink.
Okay, so summing it all up then, Trump's big, beautiful bill, it's a true blockbuster, isn't it? It brings these tax wins for some, major spending fights, and these significant global waves.
Definitely. And starting January 1st, 2026, it's the reality. And it's clearly dividing the nation. Very strong feelings on both sides about where this leads.
So after hearing all this, is it a genius move or a debt disaster? What stands out to you, Shu? Your take. Hit the comments with your thoughts. We're all ears. Like, subscribe, and we'll catch you next time.